In high-level sorcery combat, the ultimate lethal variable is the gap between perception and action. A sorcerer who needs an extra half-second to translate what they feel into what they do is already dead. The opponent has moved twice in the time it took to process once. Todo's own technique, Boogie Woogie, runs entirely on this margin. Every clap is a millisecond decision about who occupies which space, and a single hesitation collapses the system. He cannot work with a partner who edits themselves before speaking. The architecture of his power requires zero latency in the people standing next to him. The question about women is not testing taste, it is testing the distance between thought and word. Yuji's instant, unfiltered answer proves there is no buffer in his cognition. From a single sentence, Todo extracts a complete profile of how the boy will behave under pressure and decides he can hand this person his life.
What kind of woman's your type?
I don't really have a type. As long as one's character is unshakable, there's nothing more I can ask for.
In any other context, his caution would be the smarter response. The horror of Todo's filter is that it punishes thoughtfulness inside a domain where thoughtfulness gets you killed. Todo did not invent the question. He inherited it from his master, the special-grade sorcerer Yuki Tsukumo, who used it on him when he was a child. Before her, Todo was a brutally strong kid drowning in a chronic, low-grade boredom. Yuki cracked him open with the same shock question he now uses on others. She gave him a way to find the rare people whose presence would not bore him to death. The question is not random, and it is not a joke. It is a tool for salvation, passed from teacher to student. Yuki used it to pull him out of his own dullness. Todo uses it to scan the world for signs of the same condition in others, and to drag them out of it the moment he finds one. The diagnostic and the gift are the same gesture. After Yuji passes the test, Todo immediately begins describing memories that did not happen. He talks about being best friends with Yuji since middle school. He recalls specific moments. He references inside jokes that have never existed. He builds an entire shared history out of nothing in real time and presents it to Yuji as if both of them had lived it. Read at face value, the behavior is unsettling. A grown sorcerer hallucinating a friendship he is having for the first time. Played, again, for comedy. There is a phenomenon in psychology sometimes called the cognitive mirror, the deep, often desperate need for another consciousness that reflects your own back to you in recognizable shape. People can survive almost any condition except one, never being seen accurately. Prolonged isolation among people who are technically present but psychologically incompatible produces a particular kind of starvation, and the mind does not stop searching for a mirror just because no mirror is available. It begins manufacturing one. Todo grew up inside the polite, hierarchical, deeply artificial environment of Jujutsu society. The sorcerers around him were either older instructors managing his utility or peers who treated him like a brute they had to coexist with. His strength made him valuable. His personality made him alien. The combination produced the exact loneliness that breeds a hunger for raw, unfiltered honesty. For someone who would respond to him as a person rather than as a category. Yuji answers him without performance, without strategy, without the layer of social translation that everyone else in Todo's life has used to keep him at arm's length. The cognitive mirror Todo has been hunting for years arrives in the form of a boy who has not yet learned to lie to powerful people. The brain does what brains do under that pressure. It rewrites the past to match the rare correctness of the present. Todo doesn't invent the friendship because he is delusional. He invents it because his mind has been carrying around the shape of it for so long that finding the actual person snaps the shape into place, and the years of waiting collapse backwards into memory.
This is also where the second strange thing about Todo becomes visible. He doesn't just need a partner, he upgrades them. Most of the strongest figures in this series operate as solitary forces. Gojo's presence flattens everyone around him into spectators. Sukuna's gravity is so heavy that allies become liabilities. Their power exists in a register no one else can enter. Todo is the inverse phenomenon. His function on a battlefield is to elevate the ceiling of whoever stands beside him.
He explains complex cursed energy concepts to Yuji on the fly, walks him through how to cook the energy correctly inside his own body, and unlocks Black Flash in him mid-fight, as if conducting a tutorial inside a war zone. He is the rarest kind of strong character, a catalyst rather than a sun. The friendship he hallucinated into being becomes literal infrastructure for Yuji's growth. The mirror, once found, doesn't just reflect, it teaches. Quick pause. Todo is a catalyst who elevates everyone around him, and I try to do the same with the depth of the analyses here on the channel. And since we're just starting out, every subscription and every like is what reduces our latency to grow. If you value this kind of deep dive that doesn't settle for the surface, subscribe, leave a like, and hit the hype button. Let's get back to the moment Todo proves that an arm is just decoration. Shibuya. The fight against Mahito has turned. Mahito catches Todo's hand and uses idle transfiguration on it, the hand he claps with, the hand his entire technique is built around. Without that hand, Boogie Woogie is gone. Without Boogie Woogie, Todo is still a strong sorcerer, but he is no longer the specific weapon he has spent his life becoming. Todo looks at the destroyed hand, looks at Mahito, and does not flinch. This is the spiritual core of the character, and the moment furthest from the comedic packaging he is usually wrapped in. Buddhist philosophy carries a doctrine that travels under several names: anattā, non-self, the recognition that what we call I is a fluid arrangement of parts rather than a permanent essence. The body, the technique, the abilities, the role, all of it is impermanent. Most sorcerers in this series build their identity around the specific shape of their power. Their technique is them. Damage the technique and you damage the soul. Mahito's entire strategy as a villain is built on this assumption. He attacks identity by attacking biology. He breaks people by proving that their flesh and their self are the same thing. Todo refuses the equation. His will is not located in the limb. His value is not located in the technique. The flesh is provisional, a tool the mind happens to be using, and when the tool breaks, the mind reaches for another one. The smile he carries through the fight is not bravado. It is the calm of a man who has already practiced losing himself and who therefore cannot be threatened by losing pieces of himself. Warning, manga spoilers ahead. Anime-only fans, watch at your own risk. The myth that Todo is fundamentally a brute survives until the final confrontation against Sukuna, where it does not just die, but is publicly contradicted by every choice the character makes. The plan to kill Kenjaku is built by Todo in advance and concealed from the people executing it. Yuta becomes the blade. Todo becomes the architect.
Yuji is kept out of the planning out of pure, cold calculation. Sukuna and Yuji share a soul-level resonance, and any information Yuji possesses could leak through that connection. So Todo lies, tells him nothing, lets him walk into the climactic battle blind, carrying false context, suffering in the dark because the mission requires it. A man capable of loving Yuji as deeply as Todo loves him, and capable of withholding the truth from him to protect the operation, is not the meathead the early arcs sold. He is something colder and more complete. A commander who has read his own affection as a variable, weighted it against the cost of failure, and decided that affection loses. Then he returns to the battlefield, his left hand gone entirely, replaced by a Vibraslap attached to the stump. Military psychology has a model called the OODA Loop: observe, orient, decide, act. Every combatant cycles through it constantly, and whoever cycles faster wins, because the opponent is acting on outdated information by the time they reach the act phase. Boogie Woogie has always been a technique that disrupts an enemy's loop. Every clap relocates Todo's position before the enemy can finalize where he is. The Vibraslap accelerates this into 50 potential swaps per second. And the true horror for the opponent is that he can feint on any of those 50 oscillations. This maneuver entirely destroys the opponent's cognitive loop. The enemy's brain cannot complete the observe phase before another swap invalidates the observation. The orient phase never begins. The opponent gets stuck in a sensory infinite regress,
a battlefield where reality refuses to stabilize long enough to be acted upon. Todo wins fights before the first physical strike lands because he hacks the enemy's spatial cognition. The body confronting him is no longer a body in combat. It is a body trapped in an unsolvable perceptual puzzle, swinging at echoes. This is the technical signature of someone whose intelligence has always been the actual weapon. The strength was loud, but the strength was secondary. The mind was always doing the work, and the comedic costume was the camouflage that let it work uninterrupted. Sukuna, the king of curses, the entity who has spent 1,000 years dismissing nearly everyone he has met, looks at the one-handed sorcerer in front of him and acknowledges him as a true sorcerer, calls him the most annoying type of opponent. By the end, he is missing pieces of himself and most of his original technique, and still functioning as the strategic spine of a war. His role in the story is a role most fiction does not bother to write, because the role is structurally invisible. He is the catalyst who exists to make the central characters actually capable of what the plot needs them to do. Without him, Yuji never lands Black Flash. Without him, Kenjaku does not die. Without him, the strategic infrastructure of the final arc collapses. He is the reason other people get to be the heroes of their own scenes. The mind under the comedy was always running the calculation no one else was running. The hunger under the false memories was always the hunger to find someone who could carry what he saw. The detachment in the destroyed hand was always the freedom that made everything else possible. There are people in every life who function this way. The world calls them strange and writes them off, and then forgets to notice that the rooms they leave are quieter and smaller than the rooms they entered. Todo is the anatomy of one of them. The one the story almost let you laugh past before showing you what was actually being built underneath the joke.